So how did we get to start talking about mental health issues, mental illness, and the church? And I'm having a discussion right now with Maddie, and she's just gonna, one among many people that I'm going to want to have this conversation with. The reason why we're talking about mental illness today and the church and how it deals with people who have mental health issues is because of our recent discovery of an actual church, religious organization that feels it's qualified to treat people with mental illness. They believe that they're qualified enough to set up a residential treatment center where the people that are being treated are actually living here under a ministry called Mercy Ministries, which is a ministry that operates out of Nashville, Texas, and has a few other extensions. I know they have one in St. Louis, one in California, and apparently their model for residential treatment of the mentally ill is becoming more and more known, and I'm just afraid that they're actually going to be the go-to model, and they should not be. And that's what our conversation is revolving around. Mercy Ministries, which is now known as Mercy Multiplied, you can go to mercymultiplied.com, runs a residential treatment program for people with mental health issues, mental illness. And from what I understand, and I'm talking about what I'm hearing from Mercy survivors, is that Nancy Alcorn, the CEO of this ministry, is, in fact, giving out medications. However she does it, I guess she's connected herself to some doctor somewhere. But not only is she giving out medications, but she's also taken it upon herself, her and her staff in these different residential treatment centers, to actually prevent people from taking their medications and forcing them to believe and to have faith in God. And listen, that should be a choice. So there's so many strange things going on to me within this residential treatment center under calling themselves Mercy Ministries that I just see a need, and many others do see a need, that we start talking about mental health and why the church should not get themselves involved with that, because they're just not qualified. They're just not qualified. And since 2008, a lot of people have come forth blogging and commenting online, and this Mercy Ministries actually has a survivor group. How horrific is that? So there's a lot of stuff, right? I have Maddie with me. She's laughing. It's funny, yeah. And it's also very frightening to me because as someone who worked in the mental health field, volunteered first, and then worked for an organization called NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Health, I know for sure that mental health residential treatment center that's, treating the mentally ill, this is a very, it's a serious business. You can't be casting out demons willy-nilly and trying to force people into exorcisms. People need to see doctors if they need to see doctors, and that should be their choice. So, anyway, Maddie I've talked to Maddie before, and she mentioned two things that I just wanted her to mention again. Maddie, you were telling me about someone that, you were giving me an example of a professional person who went to, wanted to seek treatment, but I think that, there was this stigma, there's this stigma around mental illness that people sometimes won't even seek treatment, much less go to a church that knows nothing about treating the mentally ill. So I just wanted you to give me some background on that again. So what happened? What was that about?
Okay, yeah, that scenario was basically a young lady. She's a captain of a local police agency around here, and she's been in law enforcement for about 18 to 20 years. She has various educational degrees, PhDs, grad degrees, undergrads. So this isn't someone that we, quote unquote, typically identify as just someone crazy because they were just on the streets, in the streets, or something like that. This is someone that you would say is fulfilling the American dream. The 2.3 kids, the white picket fence, she had it all. Again, what we typically identify as the American dream. And so she found herself in a scenario where she just couldn't understand why she was unhappy, why she was having the mental and emotional challenges that she was having. And she had the career of her dreams. She had the lifestyle. Everything was consistent. And so she went to her pastor. His consistent thing was pray on it. She went to different church mothers and people within the church and pray on it, pray on it. And this was someone who stayed in prayer, and her faith was very high. She will constantly go to the Lord in prayer, but for this particular issue of her depression, of her emotional challenges, she was not getting the relief that she needed. And so she decided that she wanted to seek and pursue professional help. And in her walk of trying to find that here locally, she kept getting so many roadblocks because when people, the doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, and all of them would discover her background, they pretty much show her it was just job-related stress. And her thing was they can't simply be job-related stress if when I'm sitting at home and I just hear voices in my head, that cannot be solely attributed to work. So dealing with one person telling you to pray on it, another person telling you, oh, it's just job-related stress, she decided to take matters into her own hands, and she started seeking out doctors that were at least I should more so say not around here. She didn't want to go to anyone locally that could identify her because of the embarrassment or more so the stigma under the assumption of her being who she was. So she started going to see a psychiatrist that was over an hour away from where she lived. And with that treatment that she sought from that doctor, she immediately saw results. And she realized that had she not did what she did, when she did, she could have potentially harmed herself or harmed someone else. And so she has now been in treatment for maybe about 4 years now. It went from 2 to 3 times a week. Well, it was basically 3 times a week one week and then 2 times a week the other week because of her schedule. Her sessions were about an hour and a half, and then that been reduced to then just 2 days a week each week for an hour, and then that became reduced to an hour and a half session once a week to now she only has a half an hour session once a week. And the doctor wanted to release her about 8 months ago. But she said to her that she wanted to just continue the treatment because she wanted to be 1,000, not just 100, but 1,000% sure that she was in a position where if she had a breakdown, had a moment, that she could not just pray on it, if you will, but whether it was talking to her husband, talking to girlfriends, or just someone could help relieve that tension, relieve that motion, that feeling that she was having. And so at this point, she did mention that the doctor said we're going to get another 6-month trial, and at that point we may go to just telephone calls. So the doctor sees and saw her progress and realized that she doesn't need to be on the couch, as they say, every week, but maybe more in an environment where she can be more of a help to someone else by talking to people, by helping them get the treatment they need, both medically and personally. Yeah. And then this way they won't feel the need to say, in order to quiet these voices, in order to calm myself down, I'll just shoot myself, I'll jump off the bridge, or do whatever to whomever for whatever. And that should definitely be the outcome I needed for her success, specifically against someone who is the consummate professional, what we consider the American dream, captain of the police force, almost promoted to major. So she's going up in the ranks. Even one day could be a police chief. But just based on her challenges, she knew that she was no help to anyone, both professionally and personally, until she got the help that she needed.
Fantastic. You know what gets me about this story is she went to the church, and the church told her to pray. Okay?
Yeah.
See, that really stands out to me because listen, hearing voices and praying, about those voices. I'm not making a connection there. It doesn't make sense to me. First of all, a church is not qualified to treat mental illness, because this is an actual physical thing that goes on, sometimes chemically, sometimes it could be nutritional, because certain vitamin deficiencies, it could be a reaction to that. Medical doctors do understand that there are different variables, and I mean, I've been in churches where they're saying, well, it's a demon.
Yes. No. It's always a demon or the devil. It's one of the two. And I must interject as well that, quote unquote, the individuals that I've experienced personally and professionally, it's not, they don't, quote unquote, do what we identify as, quote unquote, devilish things. So they weren't out here, quote unquote, sleeping around, as some people would say, or doing drugs. Not saying that anyone who does these things, that makes them a bad person, makes them a devil, or not of God, by no means. But what the quote-unquote Christians typically identify as to why you're having these problems is because you were doing these things. So
because with the church, Maddie, you brought up a good thing, because with the church, it's, you're in sin. So
correct, exactly.
They're lumping. They want to lazily. I call it lazy. They want to lazily lump, and we're talking about the church leaders who it trickles down to the congregation. These kinds of stigmas and thoughts and ideologies that just aren't true. One, it's either Satan or it's you're in sin, right? And now, even when it comes down to, your finances aren't up to par, then you're in sin.
You're in sin.
Or your finances should be higher because, and you need to tithe more so you can get more money.
Yeah.
Either way,
tithe is the answer to all of your problems.
Yeah, either way, we've got so many issues here. So now, for me, when I hear this topic, first of all, in this day and age, especially, we have chemicals in foods. That's just the truth. And then some of these chemicals in these foods and these additives and these preservatives actually do cause some people to get ill. And as far as I'm concerned, if there's a pastor that can't understand that and knows nothing about that, they have no right and no business talking about demons in the first place.
Correct. And let me interject there as well. Since you mentioned specifically the diet, keep in mind not to go off on another totally different subject, but think about this. We'll just use two specific examples. Anyone who is currently actively taking radiation and or chemotherapy, which they rarely take them simultaneously, but if they are taking those treatments, the doctors and surgeons and specialists are very adamant about what you are not to eat in order that the cancer won't come back. And so we know also people who are on dialysis, waiting for kidneys, those specialists are very adamant, don't eat blah, blah, blah if you want to live. So if these foods, these various things that are put in our foods can make your cancer come back, if they can cause all these issues, then we already know that what you're putting in what you eat does have a reaction on you chemically, which chemically immediately associates to the brain.
Right. And see, I can't profess to say, well, every mental health issue is nutritional and there's a chemical imbalance. No,
correct.
That's not what that's not at all what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that I know is something to look at, and that tells me that the church doesn't know what they're talking about.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Church leadership doesn't know what they're talking about, and that they should stay in their own lane.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people who suffer in the church from various mental health issues, and a lot of them, they don't want to go to the pastor. They know what they're up against.
Correct.
They
really don't want their business in the church.
No.
Mhm.
Then the next thing you know, everybody knows all their business.
Exactly.
Okay.
And now the emotional, I didn't mean to cut you off, the emotional challenges that they were already trying to get help for has now been dominoed or an avalanche, if you will, on top of that. So now they have the stress of overcoming their initial issue. Now you've added another issue. So they went from one problem here to now a mountain of additional problems, and scrutiny is another thing from people because of that. Mm-hmm.
And in the mental health field, when we talk about professionals, okay, so I used to work in a addictions treatment center as a counselor. And there's one thing you must have is confidentiality. I can't go around telling the world about some client I'm working with and what's going on with them. And the church doesn't understand that. They know nothing about that. Another reason why they should just stay away from mental health issues and anything like that, because you tell the pastor done told his wife, and they told everybody. Every member of the church knows that so-and-so is going through this or that issue.
Exactly.
So there's so many things that a church wouldn't understand about professional treatment for people who have mental illness. They don't know. I just so want them to stay out of that arena, because what I'm hearing about this Nancy Alcorn, CEO of Mercy Ministries, from the survivors, and this is just what we're hearing. And if this woman isn't coming forward, if this church isn't coming forward to say anything, I can only go by what I'm hearing,
Exactly.
And one of the things I was hearing is that, first of all, when some of the people in this residential Christian treatment center are on the phone, let's say, talking with relatives or talking with friends or whatever, that there's actually counselors monitoring their phone calls and listening to what they're saying. A lot of strong arming. We're going to watch everything you're saying and doing, and we're going to tell you what to say and what not to say. All this is ridiculous. That is. We can't force anyone to behave in any way, and we can't force people who want to take medication. We can't force them and say, you're not going to take it. You're going to trust God, and we're the staff here. We're going to make you trust God. We're going to watch you 24 hours, and we're going to monitor you, and we're going to tell you, no, you can't have another Xanax, and you can't have another pill, because we want you to trust God. And that's the kind of stuff I'm hearing that's going on at this residential treatment center run by a church, a ministry called Mercy Ministries. What do you think about that?
I think that's very interesting, because that is their clutch and that is their excuse to continue to collect money. I don't want to insinuate or imply that they don't truly want to help these individuals, but I think that it's more of how much can I get out of it, more so than how much can I help these individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I feel that it's more so about the money than it is about the help.
Well, I know that many ministries, they see, the church has this thing where they'll say, "Oh, we don't believe in medicine. Oh, we don't believe in doctors. We're going to stand on faith." All right, you're going to stand on faith, but yet you're a 501(c)(3), and of course you do get funding from somebody, right?
Yeah.
Not only do they get funding, but they don't pay taxes.
Correct.
Yes. So if you're not paying taxes, and and then you have that perk going, and you're collecting monies from all kinds of different people. I have nothing against collecting, money. If people want to give you money, fine. If you're tax free and but the thing is that you are in league with the government. A church and a ministry is working with the government, and they have a perk, and that perk is we don't pay taxes.
Correct. Yep.
You know what I mean? So we don't pay taxes. And as far as whether or not Mercy Ministries or any other ministry wants to deep down in their heart help, I can agree. I mean, I can't judge the heart of a person. I'm only going by what I see that I would be considered criminal, or what I would consider against the law. Because if you're a treatment center and you don't have the proper licensure to run a residential treatment center, then there's a problem. You know what I mean? If you don't have the right, and you're not connected with the right medical facilities and the right doctors, if you're doing things in a shady way, if you're not listening and allowing people to speak to their doctor privately and follow their doctor's orders as opposed to your orders that they seek God, then something is wrong. Mercy Ministries. Yeah.
And I think,
have you seen any of
the legality behind it? I think what happens too is a lot of them just like to fall under the umbrella of a church, or I should say of a ministry, which kind of gives them that protection, if you will, that immunity, because they can say, oh, we're treating them in the name of Christ. And so at that point, from a law enforcement perspective, they're like, okay, no taboo. We're not going to have any lawsuits against us, so we're going to stay over here and be quiet.
Yeah,
so
well,
I think that,
you're talking about, being able to hide behind, we're a ministry. Right.
Correct, exactly. And that, when we're treating these women, because we are encouraging them to pray and stay in the Word and things of that nature, and that will cast out whatever issues they may have, then if someone was to challenge us or approach us, they could never say that we were giving them chemical treatments because we were just praying with them and praying for them.
Yeah, but in this case, or in a case where whatever you have here in this treatment center in particular, that there are women that are and people that are taking medications, though. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They're there, and they are still continuing in their medications, and yet you have all these glowing reports coming from that particular ministry about how they're not involved with the government and the government types of treatment, while at the same time, you know what I mean? Yeah, so.
Because they do understand the definitions of those 501c3s and how they have to make sure that they use the correct definitions and verbiage in order that no one can say, oh, you're not operating as such. So they're very, very careful with their definitions of what they are in order that they do not create a problem that they know will lead to those issues because of that 501c3.
Unfortunately, they're creating a big problem because they've had people that have gone through that program complaining since 2008, as far as from what I see. And they've had their Mercy Ministries programs shut down in Australia for some of the things that the survivors have been mentioning online, and the different blogs and things like that of some of the forced treatment they're getting. And if this ministry can't speak out and address what is it that I want to know what you're hiding and what are you afraid of, if you can't come up and address the people that are complaining about what's being done to them in this ministry that's supposedly treating the mentally ill. Obviously, there's issues, and if they say truly that they want to help, then why would you not listen? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Why would you not? Yes. Why would you?
It makes me wonder. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me cut you off. It makes me wonder, what did the Australian government see and find that said, oh, no, we're not going to have this, and shut it down, that the United States has not identified yet, or it's okay, it's fine. So if the Australian government found a reason to shut it down, there should be no reason why the United States cannot copy that and shut it down as well.
Right. And I think it would be So the Australian government shut down Mercy Ministries. So then let's look at Mercy Ministries and what they're doing in the U.S. And like you said, why was it shut down there, and why are they open here? And we're hearing from the survivors that some of the same things that went on, are still going on. For instance, some of these residents, ex-residents are talking about things like they were prevented from seeing family members, or prevented from going on a weekend pass, or punished in some way for certain infractions or whatever. And my thing about that was that actually Nancy Alcorn, from what I have read, she came out of the juvenile justice system where she was working with women who were in these type juvenile prison homes.
Okay.
You see. And so from there she developed this model for her residential treatment homes, and then you throw in the word Christian. And so what I'm hearing from a lot of the people that had been through this so-called mental health treatment center run by them sounds a lot to me like how you would run a juvenile home.
That's exactly how you would do it. You are absolutely right. So we definitely see where she got her diagram from, and where she got her organization on how to do it. So we can definitely see the connection there. Absolutely. Definitely where she got the blueprint from. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't want to slander anyone, but my perception of it is simply she saw it as an income-earning opportunity and wanted to take advantage of it, because although they may be a ministry and may be identified as a non-profit, or as some may say not-for-profit, there still is an opportunity for profit, because people do get paid. And, of course, they don't decide how much you get paid. You just get paid. So we definitely know
but there's different ways that they get money, because if they're taking clients, using clients' Medicaid or whatever, then they're paying doctors to see these clients. I mean, if they're using people's public assistance and asking them to give $200 out of it monthly, if they're doing that. My conversation with you and this conversation, it has to be about discussing what we're hearing.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It has to be about discussing what we're hearing, because we're not hearing from them. We're not hearing from Mercy Ministry. You know what I mean? We're not hearing from Nancy Alcorn, but we are hearing from people who are crying out about abuse. Is what they're crying out about. So, I mean, of course we know, even God is listening. Right?
Absolutely.
So what I'm saying is certain people have come forth, and these are witnesses. By the mouths of these witnesses, this is what we're hearing. And so,
And I must interject this as well. Each time I hear you use the word survivor, it makes me cringe, because when we think of survivors, we generally typically associate it to people who have been tortured physically, emotionally, someone who overcame such a horrendous scenario and challenges. We're like, oh, yes, you survived breast cancer, you survived domestic abuse. But to hear someone who had the mental and emotional challenges that they sought the treatment from, and to call them survivors, not of their challenge, but of the ministry, speaks volumes of what the actual ministry represents.
And
it's an oxymoron.
I'm not laughing at that. It's just it's like a nervous laugh, because what I'm hearing is from people who've been through additional trauma. In a Christian organization, and no one has heard them, and some of them, are saying, look, I became worse there. And I finally, when I left Mercy Ministries, I, was able to get back maybe on my medication and continue my healing journey, as well as try to recover from some of the treatment that impacted me. And, even if some of these, some of what we're hearing is, we have to sort it out. But still, people have a right to be heard.
Correct.
People have a right to be heard.
And even if you feel like, oh, they're just complaining or they're just whining, no, they're not. They have a valid concern and a valid reason for feeling the way they feel.
Absolutely.
And we shouldn't just cast them to the side because we may not agree, but they have every reason to feel the way they feel and to express it and to be taken seriously and realize that there's validity to their claim. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Because if you're a leader and you say that you're there to lead and you're there to help, you don't only just want to hear praise. You want to hear complaints so that you can be a better leader and that you can have a better, ministry, organization, and, whatever it is. So,
yes. Yeah. And I must say this as well. When we look at it from the Christian perspective, one of the things that I think that is also critical is that in order for someone to truly identify their individual walk with Christ, if they're having these challenges, they need to conquer those in order to say, okay, now, God, I'm ready to take that walk, that faith, that I'm here now. I'm all here. I know this is me. I don't feel like I'm 10 different people. I don't feel like I'm ready to commit suicide. I don't feel like I'm ready to harm someone else because now I am together. And, through these various treatments, medication, and staying in prayer, I now realize that, yes, I have accepted Christ. I do believe in Christ. And it's not just something to do because I realize it's real. So I do believe as well as that when people do get the treatment that they need and desire, that it makes their faith walk even more powerful and more substantial, and they have a real testimony. It
could. You know what? To me, it could, and maybe it doesn't. It could, but it absolutely could. It absolutely doesn't. I don't know which one it is, but I can say, because I know people that have left the faith, left Christianity because of mistreatment and abuse. For me, and I can only speak for myself, I suffered from clinical depression since I was 16 years old. So it's been 9 years that I've been free of depression, free of medication. Just 9 years now. 9 years. And for me, I couldn't even read the Bible during those times. There were times there that I could not get out of bed. I couldn't turn a page. I didn't have the strength. I didn't have the focus. I couldn't even wash a plate. You know what I'm saying? So,
and just your everyday.
Yeah. So the medication. The medication for people sometimes it can get them to the point now. Okay, I can think clearly. I can. This medication has helped to lift this depressive feeling that I have had. It's lifted. I start to feel better. Okay, great. I mean, now I can focus more on Scripture. You know, like you said, yes, that can happen. I can focus more on Scripture now because, you know, with this type of mental health, we're dealing with the mind. You know, we're dealing with the mind, and it's not even that we know everything that we need to know about the mind. You know,
exactly.
So, but I can speak for myself in that, and I can't speak for any other person who went through Mercy Ministries Mental Health Treatment Center. I can't speak for really any other type of a mental illness like schizophrenia, bipolar illness. I can't speak on those. And I think if the church is really who they say they are, then they would listen to everybody's perspective. Yes, and let's come together and find our answers.
Absolutely. Because, and like I say to people constantly, just because you don't have the same struggle I have does not make my struggle invalid. Just because you may not have never dealt with this does not mean that what I'm dealing with is not real. So don't minimize mine because you've never dealt with it. And if you can't help me, just tell me. I can't be of any help to you. But at least pray and wish that I get the treatment and the help and the outcome that I need But don't
and it's funny,
downplay it.
yeah, you're talking about what you're talking about is very important. Sometimes we can just be there. Don't judge it.
Absolutely. Don't judge it. Don't judge it.
Don't say,
because
listen,
I remind people, it may not be your struggle today, but it may be your struggle tomorrow. Whether it comes from a breakup, whether it comes from losing a job, whether it comes from losing a home, it could be anything that could drive that depression or drive that chemical imbalance. But like I told everyone, just because it hasn't happened to you does not mean it can't or it won't.
Yeah, I think that's so very true. And I even have to say for myself, there's been, and there's been those times in other areas where, I might have misjudged. And I misjudged because I didn't know. I didn't walk that person's walk. I don't know what they went through, right? So that I had to come to a place to be open and just stop. Don't judge. Just try to listen. And you know what? Sometimes you don't even have to understand. Just love the person.
Exactly.
Right.
And for some people, that may be just the start of just simply you listening, maybe giving them a hug and letting them know that I'm going to be here for you the best way I know how, but give me a chance to understand and work with you and learn that I can help you.
Oh, very good. Yes.
Because if I don't understand, it's unfair for me to say to you, oh, I understand what you're going through. Well, wait, I've never been through it. Just like I must go listen. When I hear someone say, oh, I understand, you're going through that because you lost your mom, you lost your dad, but your mom is right across the street, your dad is right around the corner.
Right,
So you can't say you understand because your parents are alive. So don't tell me you understand what I'm going through when you've never walked it, experienced it, whether it's you directly, a child, a parent, just someone close enough to you that you could identify those struggles and challenges.
Right, yeah. So we want to be careful with saying so quickly that we understand, because sometimes we just don't.
We just don't. And it's okay to say it. I can't say that enough. It's okay to say I don't understand.
Absolutely.
But I want to be there for you. Help me help you.
Yeah. And,
and we can work together.
With, when it comes to mental health issues, sometimes, people are struggling in their home. They're struggling keeping their daily living skills up. They're struggling with keeping their house clean. They're struggling with facing the world, going outside, doing their exercise. And, instead of, we can hear things like, oh, well, that person, oh, look at her. She ain't keeping herself together. She don't look right no more. Or she this or she that. And sometimes it's just if someone would come to their house and just walk with them, be with them.
Just walk with them.
Yeah, support them. And I had somebody actually from the church to do that for me. So I know how valuable that can be. Don't judge, just support, walk with. And after a while, people can begin to stand a little bit on their own.
On their own, absolutely.
Yes.
Just a little at a time. A little at a time. It's like today, I took 2 steps. Tomorrow it's 10. Now it's a mile. Before you know it, I'm spreading wings and flying.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. So, it was great talking to you, Maddie.
Likewise.
Like I said, this is a conversation I want to have with you and as many people with an interest. And, we can probably talk about this again. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I look forward to it because as women, we definitely need to stick together and support each other emotionally, mentally, in any way we can. Just to make sure as women we stay empowered. Absolutely.
All right. So I'm going to stop now.